Hey, what's going on YouTube? So I just finished my playthrough of Ys VIII, and that means it's time for another review video. I have never played any of the previous Ys games, but I have heard many good things about this series, which made me excited to try out Ys VIII. As with most reviews, this will be as spoiler free as possible. The only thing that may provide very tiny, insignificant spoilers will be when I talk very broadly about the characters and the story. So I always come into games blind or mostly blind, knowing only what a few characters look like and the premise of the game, as I think this allows me to come into the games with a cup empty mindset. Ys VIII is no exception, and with that said, Ys VIII is definitely one of the most enjoyable JRPGs I have played in a while. Persona 5 still holds first place in my heart by a big margin, but Ys VIII is an incredible action JRPG nonetheless. The main character is an adventurer named Adol, and the story follows a group of castaways that get stranded on a cursed island after the boat they were traveling on sank. The beginning of the game is spent doing what anyone who is stranded on an unknown island would do: survey the area, try to find other survivors, and doing your best not to be eaten by the dangerous creatures that think you look like Korean barbecue. This may sound boring, but for me it was a very nice change of pace compared to other JRPGs I have played recently. Exploring the island and trying to survive allowed Ys VIII to differentiate itself from the trove of typical non-action JRPGs I'm used to playing. We soon find out that the island isn't normal and contain a lot of mystery. Solving one mystery leads to more questions, and this is where the game starts to pick up. These mysteries are introduced very naturally as the player explores more of the island, so it works out very well. It's this type of story that keeps me invested and wanting to know more about the island and the characters' fate, even the supporting characters. While we're on the subject, the characters are amazing. I love the main and supporting characters in Ys VIII. Adol is a voiceless protagonist, which some people really hate in a video game, but it's not something I mind at times since I do get to select some of his dialogue even though they are just flavor text. As you progress and save more castaways, you learn more about everyone who was aboard the ship through their flavor dialogue and the side quests. Everyone comes from different walks of life and have different experiences, which lets me get to know everyone and care about them. Or hate them. Everyone you find has some sort of specialty that helps you with survivability, like being a tailor, blacksmith, or a doctor. But you probably shouldn't think too deeply into how everyone had these skills that happen to perfectly fit what was needed for survival on the island. Gameplay works very well in conjunction with the setting of the story, and is the main reason why I enjoyed Ys VIII so much. Since you are stranded on an island, there is always something to do that keeps you busy. I enjoyed exploring new areas of the island and finding sightseeing locations. While exploring, you can also gather resources from the environment such as mine deposits, trees, killing wild beasts, or fishing. Fishing is a nice little minigame that I enjoyed because it was something different that I can do while exploring, but when it comes down to it, it's still fishing. If you have always hated fishing in games because the minigames were mindless and boring, then you'll probably feel the same way here. At the very least, you get useful items from fishing. Ys VIII also offers two more minigames in addition to fishing called Interceptions and Suppressions, which unlock later. The name of the game is to protect the village for interception and destroy monster nests for suppression. Both minigames play differently and are graded based on performance. The higher the grade, the more items you get. The minigames were pretty fun in the beginning. It offered you more content you could progress in by allowing you to create and upgrade defenses for your village, and added yet another way to gain items. But Interception quickly got tiring, as this minigame often takes way too long to complete due to the long transitions between waves. Suppression didn't suffer from this, so it remained fun to play. Obviously, due to the setting of this game, money is useless. Instead of selling items you find for money to buy things, you use them to create the equipment and items that you need. I really like this aspect of the game since it's a different system for obtaining gear and items. If I want to make something, I actually have to go out and find the correct materials rather than just farm the money to buy whatever I want. There are also different tiers of items, so you can take a large quantity of lower quality items and create the next tier of that item, or vice versa. This becomes less useful as you progress, but it's a cool thing to have that makes all items useful.
Thank you.
Despite having all this to do, there is still one more thing: side quests. Love them or hate them, Ys VIII offers the same fetch and extermination side quests you're probably bored of doing from other games. But unlike other games, Ys VIII makes them worth doing. since it helps with character progression and development. Ys VIII also doesn't make the mistake of overloading you with them, only giving you a few at a time between story progression points. Usually I hate doing side quests, looking at you Final Fantasy XV, but I didn't think there were enough in Ys VIII. The only bad thing about this is there is no indication of when a side quest appears, so you have to keep checking the village to see if a new one pops up unless you're following a guide. Combat is fast paced and feels very good as well. Characters can be freely controlled without any restrictions. You can jump, dash, use combat skills whenever you want. Ys VIII is an action RPG, so gameplay is in real time. There aren't any random encounters, battle transitions, or victory screens, which is nice since it keeps the pacing intact. Different parts of the island are also gated off by natural blockades such as boulders or trees, which requires a certain amount of people to move. Other times, paths require a special gear that allows you to traverse the problematic terrain. Combat can offer a good challenge depending on which of the 5 difficulties you choose from and your skill level. I chose hard since I was not familiar with Ys gameplay mechanics, and I found this difficulty to be appropriate for me. Combat was hard enough where there are chances that I could die if I just mindlessly hack and slash everything in front of me. The boss fights were also difficult, but did not feel impossible. This is important because I didn't feel discouraged every time I got my butt kicked by a boss and then want to quit. I would just go back in and try to improve on things I did wrong before, until I eventually beat it. In terms of combat mechanics, the game is really easy to play but hard to master. Besides having a variety of attacks and skills per character, you also have a dodge and block maneuver. If the player blocks just as they are about to get hit, they get flash guard, which causes all attacks to become critical hits for a few seconds. Similarly, if the player dodges right as they are about to get hit, they get flash move, which causes time to slow down and the character's speed to exponentially increase, which allows you to get more attacks in as well as moving very fast. Both buffs can be used at the same time, allowing the most damage possible. Enemies have different attack patterns, so having to learn the timings for all the enemies I had to face was a fun experience. Depending on the attack, the timing can be a bit weird sometimes, so I'd rather just dodge than try to get the buff. Ys VIII's combat does not stop there. They also added a break mechanic that gives you more to think about when choosing your team. Each character has an attack type: slash, pierce, or smash. Most enemies are weak to one of these attacks. When damaged enough by this attack, their armor breaks and it drops an item. Combined with all the other game mechanics, this gives you a lot of options for finding resources and playing the game. The last thing to talk about is the graphics and soundtrack. The graphics looks very subpar for a PS4 game, especially with games like Final Fantasy around, but it comes with the territory. The style is kind of 3D anime-ish, but I think it could have been improved if it also didn't release on the Vita. As I put more hours into the game, the style actually started to grow on me. The design of the island and the explorable areas were actually created very well. Having less than stellar graphics did not stop them from making some stunning and beautiful world space that can be admired. The soundtrack for this game is also simply amazing. There are very few games where the soundtrack really works, and this happens to be one of the few. There isn't a single track that I did not love. The music that plays during battle or when exploring dungeons and ruins mixes very well with the environment you are exploring, and adds to that sense of adventure. There were definitely some songs that gave me the feels. So there you have it. I very thoroughly enjoyed Ys VIII and would highly recommend it to people who are looking for the next great JRPG to play. Once you get through the beginning of the game, the story starts to pick up and become more interesting. As I started to find more survivors and building the community, I became really attached to all the castaways. The main cast is very lovable and work well to support each other. The story, while not the best that's ever written, is pretty good for a JRPG and I liked it. I was always curious about what was going to happen next and anxious to find the answer to the mysteries that were presented to me. I recommend giving the demo a try to get a feel for the combat, however it was not a very good representation of the game overall since everything was so limited. I was disconnected from the demo when I tried it since progress didn't matter and there was very little to do. But playing the full version of the game was a completely different experience since you see the game as a whole and get to appreciate how the game takes advantage of the setting and creates a great experience from it. So give this game a try, and I hope you will add Ys VIII as one of your cherished JRPG games. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.